When you are constantly available to others, you sacrifice the sacred silence that your soul needs in order to speak. The stillness that arises in solitude is the foundation of all self-knowledge. It is only when you step back that the inner world begins to unfold with clarity. In constant noise, you lose the voice of the self, which is your true guide. The modern world has glorified busyness, but the soul thrives not in movement, but in meaning. Every time you silence your needs to satisfy the expectations of others, you bury a part of yourself. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. This is not just a poetic reflection, it is a psychological necessity. Looking inside demands space, time, and the courage to say no. Being constantly accessible is a form of unconscious bondage. You become imprisoned in the image others have created for you. You mold your time, your speech, your energy to their needs, not realizing that in doing so, you are distancing yourself from your essence. Freedom begins the moment you realize your time is sacred. The psyche longs for integration, not fragmentation. But every instance you say yes to avoid discomfort, you fracture yourself. You become divided. Version of yourself for each demand, each expectation, each interaction. This leaves no energy for individuation, the process Jung called the journey of becoming whole. You must dare to retreat, not as an escape, but as a return to your center, your truth. Silence is not the absence of noise, it is the presence of self. It is where your wounds whisper their truths, where your fears rise to be witnessed, where your potential begins to breathe. But you cannot hear these whispers if you are always answering the call of others. When you stop being available, you confront the guilt that has long governed your choices. This guilt is not real. It is a residue of conditioning, of learned behaviors from childhood, of a belief that your worth is tied to your utility. But you are not a function. You are a being of depth, of complexity, of inner richness. To honor your inner world is an act of rebellion in a culture addicted to the outer. People will resist your withdrawal, not because it harms them, but because it confronts their own avoidance. Your boundaries become a mirror they are not ready to look into. But this is not your concern. Your task is not to keep others comfortable. It is to become whole. The greatest journey is not across oceans or continents. It is the inward spiral into the soul. It is facing the loneliness, the fear, the unmet needs, and discovering that beneath them lies power. When you stop being available, you finally have the space to meet yourself. You are not here to be everything for everyone. You are not here to constantly rescue, explain, or fix. You are here to discover the fullness of who you are, beyond roles and personas. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That privilege begins with presence, to self, not others. There is an alchemy in solitude that cannot be replicated. It strips away illusion. It reveals the parts of you that have been silenced, abandoned, or ignored. It reconnects you with the archetypes, the wise elder, the wounded healer, the wild self, that live within your psyche. When you are too available, you feed the persona, the mask you wear to be liked, accepted, validated. But beneath the persona is the shadow, and the shadow will not remain quiet. It will surface through resentment, fatigue, anxiety. These are signals, not problems. They are your soul's way of saying enough. The journey into yourself begins when you make space, not a few minutes between meetings, not a quick breath before bed, but real, sacred, intentional space. This is where you reclaim your center. This is where you meet your myth, your wound, your longing. People will not understand your absence. That is their task. Yours is to remain faithful to the truth that calls from within. Jung said, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." That clarity does not arrive in chaos. It arrives in solitude. You are not meant to be a servant of other people's chaos. The healer, the mystic, the thinker, they all knew the power of retreat. They stepped away from the world not to abandon it, but to return with insight. But you cannot return with wisdom if you never leave. Let the world misunderstand your silence. Let them label your absence. These are not your burdens to carry. Your only burden is to remain true to your soul, even when the noise outside demands your attention. That is the true act of courage. The more you say no to what depletes you, the more you say yes to what awakens you. This is not selfishness. It is self-responsibility. Your energy is your currency, and if you spend it on what is not yours, you will have nothing left for your destiny. To stop being available is to reclaim the throne of your inner kingdom, to sit with your own being, to face the mirror of your soul. It is here that transformation happens, not in performance, but in presence. Not in doing, but in being. You have lived long enough trying to be good. Good for others, good for appearances, good for peace. But peace that costs you yourself is not peace. It is suppression, and suppressed souls do not soar. They suffocate. It is time to breathe, to stand, to separate what is yours from what was given to you without consent. The expectations, the roles, the false humility, they are not you. They are layers you wore to survive. Now, survival is no longer enough. You must live. The soul does not unfold through obligation. It unfolds through authenticity. When you step away from the noise and into your own silence, something ancient begins to awaken. It is the voice that existed before the world told you who you should be. Each time you do what is expected instead of what is true, you betray the self. That betrayal may be quiet, even invisible to others, but your body knows. Your dreams begin to reflect it. Your spirit feels the fracture, and eventually, the psyche demands a reckoning. Do not wait for a crisis to claim your space. Do not wait for exhaustion, breakdown, or despair. Begin now, begin gently, begin fiercely, but begin. The return to yourself starts the moment you decide that your energy is sacred. People will call you distant when you stop being accessible. Let them. People will call you cold when you stop overextending. Let them. You are not here to satisfy their projections. You are here to live your truth, even if it makes others uncomfortable. There is an unspoken contract we sign in childhood, to be liked, to be good, to be accepted. But this contract is signed in fear, not freedom, and the work of adulthood is to rewrite that contract with consciousness, with power, with soul. You are not selfish for resting. You are not cruel for saying no. You are not arrogant for refusing to shrink. These are acts of reclamation. These are the first steps on the path of individuation, the becoming of who you truly are, not who you were taught to be. Everything changes when you stop being available to what diminishes you. Your vision sharpens, your intuition strengthens, your values crystallize. You begin to see who is truly aligned with your essence and who only loved your compliance. The human soul is not meant to be stretched to the point of erasure. You are not an infinite resource for other people's agendas. You are a mystery, a force, a presence, and that presence needs space to grow, space to deepen, space to evolve. Carl Jung once wrote, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." To always be available is to avoid your own inferno. You remain distracted, externally focused, afraid to sit with the wildness within. But the fire you fear is the same fire that transforms. In silence, in solitude, you meet the parts of yourself that have been banished. You see your fear, your grief, your anger. You see the child who still aches to be seen, and in that seeing, healing begins. Healing does not happen when you are busy. It happens when you are still. Growth does not occur in pleasing others. It occurs in daring to be yourself, without apology, without disguise. To stop being available is to give birth to your real life. You may lose people. You may be judged. But what you gain is incomparable. You gain alignment. You gain clarity. You gain your soul. And in gaining your soul, you become a light, not because you shine for others, but because you are no longer dimmed. You have been conditioned to believe that love must be earned through sacrifice. That belonging requires self-abandonment, but this is a lie. True connection arises not from availability, but from authenticity, from showing up whole, not hollow. When you stop being available, you begin to discern. Not everything deserves your time. Not every request is your responsibility. Not every person is your assignment. You learn to choose, and in choosing, you reclaim your power. Power is not control over others. It is sovereignty over self, and sovereignty demands space. It demands separation from the noise, the pull, the chaos. It demands that you become still enough to hear the quiet truth inside. There is a part of you that has always known. Known that you were overextending, known that you were disappearing, known that something was off. That part of you is not weak. It is wise. It is your compass, and it has been waiting for your return. Stop running. Stop explaining. Stop negotiating your truth to keep the peace. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of integrity, and integrity begins when you say, "This is who I am. This is what I need. This is what I will no longer allow." Every boundary you draw is a declaration of self-respect. It is a reminder to the world and to yourself that you are not a tool, not a product, not a savior. You are a soul, and your soul has limits. And those limits are sacred. People may weaponize your withdrawal. They may call it abandonment, but it is not your job to carry their projections. Your job is to stay aligned, to honor your path, to protect the flame within, even if others try to extinguish it. The more you return to yourself, the less you need from others. You become rooted, grounded, whole. You begin to create from fullness, not lack. You give from overflow, not depletion. This is the true gift you offer the world, your authentic presence. You are not here to be swallowed by the needs of others. You are not here to live at the mercy of every demand. You are here to create, to imagine, to become. And you cannot do that while being constantly pulled away from yourself. Take the risk of solitude. Take the risk of being misunderstood. Take the risk of being alone with your thoughts. For it is in that aloneness that the great work begins. The work of becoming, of awakening, of transformation. Jung wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important. To communicate your essence, you must first know it. And to know it, you must listen. Withdraw so you can listen. Step back so you can feel. Retreat so you can remember who you were before the world told you to be available. There is an intelligence within you that needs no approval. There is a power within you that needs no permission. You are not responsible for others' discomfort with your boundaries. You are only responsible for the alignment of your own soul, and that alignment is sacred. It is what gives your life depth, meaning, and direction. Let others adjust to your new frequency. Let the wrong ones fall away. This is not loss. It is liberation. Each departure makes room for authenticity. Each ending makes space for alignment. You do not owe the world your constant presence. You owe the self your unwavering loyalty. The more you choose yourself, the more life reveals its richness. Opportunities aligned with your soul begin to appear. Connections with depth begin to form. This is not magic. This is coherence. When your outer life reflects your inner truth, the world responds. When you stop being available to what is false, you become magnetic to what is real. Dare to let go of the familiar chaos. Dare to leave behind the noise. Dare to stand still in your truth. Everything changes when you do, not instantly, but inevitably. The soul is patient. The psyche knows the way. You will find that your presence becomes more powerful in your absence. That your silence carries more truth than your words ever did. That your no is a greater affirmation of life than your yes ever was. Return to yourself again and again, even when it hurts, even when it's lonely, even when it terrifies you. The self is the only home that will never abandon you. This is your journey, not to be constantly needed, but to be deeply known, not to be endlessly praised, but to be fiercely authentic, not to be always available, but to be finally fully alive.